Hello ladies and gentlemen, Reginald Scott here, and welcome to my video on electronic gear changing. Now this is a very important subject for all cyclists, not just pros, because one day electronic gear changing may be coming to a shop near you and may not be so expensive that you think, why not? Why not buy electronic gear changing? Now, if you've already bought electronic gear changing, you might not like some of this video, but I would implore you to stick around, watch what I have to say, and you never know, it might be useful to you in the future. And I've really thought about this subject, so give it a chance. To the rest of you who are considering, maybe don't do it just yet. Watch the video and see what I have to say. So, electronic gear changing. Basically, I don't really like the idea, and that's not because I'm against technology. I work in robotics engineering and I do a lot of electrical work, so I'm not against electronics. I love electronics. I'm using a computer right now to download this video. I'm using a HD camera, so on and so forth. Technology is fantastic, but sometimes technology isn't always best. For example, which is better? For me, a 1960s Ferrari is way better than a plus 2000s Ferrari. That's just a boring heap of computers, and that is a handcrafted, beautiful work of art. You see what I mean? And in a way, when you start sticking electronic gear changing onto this thing, which in my opinion is one of the greatest inventions man's ever come up with, and has a soul, and is beautiful, and is practical beyond belief, you actually detract from those qualities. By sticking more batteries, more servo motors and things onto this, you're not improving it, you're actually making it worse. And I'm going to come to why that is. So let's look at the disadvantages of electronic gear changing. So, Di2, £1,999. EPS, £2,100. ETAP, £2,060. Can you see a trend here? These things are jolly expensive, and I understand that as technology improves and things get more popular, prices come down. Actually, I'm not even sure that's true, because years ago when I was cycling, things were a lot cheaper back then, and now everything costs so much. Like the little clips on my city shoes, I used to be able to replace the clips on my Citys for like a couple of quid. I think the whole bracket mechanism was about £2.50, I think, online. They're £19 now. So the idea that this stuff gets more popular, electronic gear changing, it's going to come down in price. Maybe initially it will, but it'll soon go back up again when we've all got it, right? On top of its actual cost, it weighs more. I mean, a few years back when electronic gear changing was non-existent, I knew guys who would go around and take the dust caps off their wheels because the dust cap weighs too much and it's going to bring their weight up. So they would take the dust caps off and discard them. And I'm thinking, right, so these are the same kind of people with the same kind of mentalities who took their dust caps off before. Now they're going to buy Di2 or EPS or whatever, and it weighs more than a traditional group set. That's crazy. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want something that is heavier than what you've got? It's going to slow down your acceleration and it's going to make hill climbing harder. Unless then you go out and spend even more money on top of the £1,000 extra you spent on the Di2 to buy a bike which is even lighter, which is going to cost you another £2,000 to £3,000. So overall you're going to spend about like £4,000 just to fit electronic group sets to your bike. An advantage? Again, what's the advantage? Apart from being able to change gear on the drops and on the hoods, I believe is one of the advantages. So that's another thing. Weight. What about the environmental cost? These batteries are not particularly healthy for the environment. Once they die, and they will die, and they will stop functioning, and they will stop taking charge, you got to throw them away. If you don't dispose of them properly, that's really bad for the environment. If you do dispose of them properly, it costs people many millions of pounds to set up facilities which are capable of breaking down lithium-ion batteries safely and recycling the parts that can be recycled and disposing of the hazardous material that cannot be recycled. These things are really green, low carbon emissions, very efficient, friendly for the environment. Now you want to stick lethally dangerous chemicals compacted into batteries on them? Seems a bit crazy to me, but hey, maybe I don't get it. Another thing, of course, is you've got to charge the batteries, and where do you get the energy to do that? The socket on the wall. Where does that power come from? Nuclear, coal, gas, oil, and about 13 to 16% renewable, depending on where in Europe you live. In the UK it's pretty low. So most of the time it's going to be nuclear or fossil fuel that is powering your bike. Would you buy a nuclear powered bicycle? Don't think you would you? So again, why do it? So there's the environmental cost. Now, reliability. As I say, I work with robots and electronics. I know that electronics are not particularly reliable. Our robots that we sell are very reliable in comparison with other robots, but it's not the mechanical aspects of the robots that break, not the arms, not the gearing, not the wave generators, not the belts, not the cogs and things inside the robots, not the bearings. It's usually the circuitry. It's usually the microchips, the circuit boards, the batteries, all that sort of stuff that fails on our robots. And the same thing can be said for electronic gear changing. Eventually something's going to go wrong, and when it goes wrong it's going to be very expensive to repair, and unless you've got a soldering iron, a laptop and an engineering degree in electronics, you're not going to be able to do it. Most of the stuff that goes wrong with this bike I can fix myself. You can't really do that when you buy electronic stuff. And believe me, these things are weak, fragile, and electronics is very fussy. It doesn't like high magnetic fields. It doesn't like water. It doesn't like dirt. It doesn't like extreme heat. It doesn't like extreme cold. I notice my helmet cameras shut off on me when I get to temperatures below -1. You fancy your gears stopping working on you on a 100-mile ride at -1 conditions? Ich don't think so. So why would you do it? So, reliability. Guy in our club had a charger stopped working on him, couldn't take his bike for a ride because it was the charger for his Di2, and he was desperately emailing everyone saying, anybody got a charger for Di2? Anybody got a charger for Di2? And obviously he looked like a complete fool because he bought this expensive electronic gearing system on a very expensive bike, and when we buy an expensive bike, what do we want to do? We want to go out and ride the thing. We miss out on a weekend ride with our best friends. We miss out on a competition. We lose a race because the charger doesn't work or the batteries fail on us. I'm sorry, but that's just crazy. And I was chatting to a guy, apocryphal story, but nonetheless I believe true. It was second-hand, of course. Chatting to a guy in a shop, and a bike shop, and we were looking at the Di2 on the dogma frame of a Pinarello bike. £6,000 or so this bike was, and he said, I saw a set of Di2 straight up explode on a charity ride. He said, I was riding in this group and I heard this big bang, and initially I thought someone's tyre had blown out, but then all this smoke started coming off the front derailleur, and it was the lithium-ion battery on the Di2 had actually ruptured and exploded. It's rare, but it can happen. Look at hoverboards. Same batteries are in hoverboards. Would you like a flaming ball of mess right next to the inside of your leg? Don't think you would. So, again, are they worth it? These sorts of issues are always going to be there. They're going to be freak occurrences. But what's the worst that can happen if my cable breaks? Maybe it gets caught in my back wheel and I fall off my bike. If a lithium-ion battery explodes, I could be covered in flammable chemicals. That's not something we want. So they're all the very basic disadvantages. Now I'm going to kind of get into the realm of cycling conspiracies. So I'm going to kind of need my conspiracy hat. Wait there. Welcome to the realm of cycling conspiracies. I hope you like the tinfoil hat. You can't have a good conspiracy without a tinfoil hat. It's just a fact of life. Anyway, so here's my cycling conspiracy, and this shit is really weird. Okay, so the media, the cycling magazines, all those professionals on channels like GCN and all that sort of stuff, they all seem to be pushing us towards the idea of electronic gear changing. And I was thinking, why is the industry like a dog with a bone with this? Why is the industry, you can't take me seriously with this, right? Well, try and ignore the hat, okay? Just listen to what I'm saying. Why is the industry so intent on pushing electronic gear systems on us? I mean, what's wrong with the gear systems we already have? They work fine and they're beautiful and they're very efficient and they're very reliable. Why would you want to switch to something less reliable? And it got me thinking, and it's really easy to explain. Look at the world of entertainment systems like TVs. What do we know about this sort of stuff? Well, it's electronic, it's got various different elements in it which are fragile, and often these things break. And what are we expected to do? Throw them away and buy a new one. Now, the gearing system on this bike is 10 years old, and all I've ever done to it is replace some of the cabling on the levers. That's it, just the cables. That's all I've ever replaced. The gears are still the same, the cassette's still the same, the wheels, the rings are still the same, the cranks are still the same, everything's still the same from when I bought it 10 years ago. So really I've had a good deal of use out of it. And the cost to replace the wiring, the cabling, was literally nothing, you know, a few pounds. Small change that most of us could afford. Now you think about it. The price of electronic gear sets comes down. We're all pushed to buy it. So, like idiots, we go out and we buy the stuff. And then what happens when it goes wrong? Well, they've kind of got you over a barrel, haven't they? And the best analogy I can give you is modern day cars. If you buy a modern day car, it comes with an engine management system controlled by a small computer. And some modern day cars are totally controlled by computers and are full of electronics. And the first thing you do when you want to repair your car is you put it upon a set of jacks and you wheel yourself under it, or you open up the bonnet and you start tinkering with it. Oh no, wait a minute, that was old cars. Modern cars, you lift up the bonnet, all covered in plastic, specialist screws holding it down, you can't get in it. So what do you have to do? You have to take it to the garage or the place where you bought it. They put it upon a set of jacks, and then they, like Mercedes for example, charge you £350 for the privilege of bringing it back to them so they can do all your checks. And the first thing the engineer does is he plugs his laptop into it and asks the car what the problem is. And you know, I was in a bike shop not long ago, and a guy had brought his daughter's bike in. She'd had a crash during a race, and the first thing they did in this bike shop is flip the bike upside down and plug the gearing system into a laptop because it was Di2. And that just blew me away, because instantly I thought, well, hang on a minute, this is the future of cycling. You are now, if you go out and buy electronic gear systems, you're participating in the manufacturers taking away the power from the consumer and giving it to the salespeople and the retailers and the people who repair bikes, okay? So right now, 99% of the jobs that could go wrong with my bike, all I do is I go on the internet, and with the tools that I've got, I can repair it. Now, I don't even need to go on the internet now, I know how to do most jobs. I can tinker with it myself. Even me, who works with electronics, I would be hard pressed to crack open a set of electronic gears and deal with an issue. And don't forget, these things are probably going to be coded, and there's going to be passwords to it, and there's going to be specialist software simply to make sure that these gears are working. And those things are not always going to be available to the everyday customer. In fact, I can guarantee once they take a large enough market share, the ability for you to repair your own bike will be taken out of your hands. With electronic gears, what are you going to know? You're just going to know it's stopped working. You're not going to know whether it's a battery issue. You're not going to know whether there's a CPU issue. You're not going to know whether it's a circuit board that's bust. You're not going to know anything. And they're all sealed units. So if you try and get them apart, you void your warranty and you break them. So you take them back to the shop or the manufacturer, and the manufacturer says, oh yeah, this and this, it's your fault, or unrepairable, you've got to buy a new one. Or we repaired it for you at the low cost of several £100s. Do you see where I'm going with this? This is why we shouldn't be buying electronic gear sets. They're turning our bikes into our cars. But if you start injecting electronic technology into this stuff, where does it end? Like, we could have computers on our bikes that plan our routes for us, like satellite navigation, but are directly linked to our gearing systems. So that when we come up to a hill or an incline or a descent, our bike is automatically changing gear for us. Now, what would happen if that was then made part of the Tour de France? That pro athletes now don't even have to change gear because the route is mapped out, the computer knows where it is using the GPS, and the computer's already assessing and deciding the best gearing system or the best gear ratio for that route. You could even have pre-programmed attacks into the bike where at any given moment the bike changes gear to allow the sprinter or the rider to break away from the peloton and go on the attack. It could all be automated. It could even at one point be controlled by the cycling captain or the coach. You know, somebody remotely could hack into it and control the rider's gear systems for whatever reason. Also, some unscrupulous individual may be able to pick up on the frequencies that are used to communicate with the gear systems, and in order to cause a crash or a problem, hack into it. It's been done with cars, so why not bicycles? And even if that wasn't enough, you start to then see this huge expansion, like why not, the radar systems that we're seeing for bikes now, for the rear lights, that feeds radar information to the front via a little Garmin computer or something. Why not have radar on the front and the rear of the bike that controls your braking system? Why not that? Why not have the bike know what kind of hill you're on and apply the brakes automatically for you when you're coming downhill? Why not have cameras on the front that recognise different types of road signs and stop signs and have self-driving bicycles? Why not? If we're willing to put electronic gears on our bikes, why do we even bother with the bike? Why not just have two wheels driven by electric motors, powered by hydrogen fuel cells, radar cameras front and rear, road sign and stop sign recognition, automatic gear changing, and powered pedals? Why don't we do that? Program in your destination, sit on the saddle, kick back and relax, and bang, you're gone. Why don't we do that? And that, my friends, is why electronic gear changing is literally the devil in disguise. I'm not going to buy it. I would advise you not to buy it. For me, it totally takes away from the soul of a bike. The bike is simple, it's beautifully mechanical, it's efficient, it's environmentally friendly, and batteries and servo motors are none of those things. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it interesting and a little bit strange. Please stick in the comments below, share it among your friends, stop the plague of electronic gears. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time. God, I'm going to be so unpopular for this, but hey, a bit of controversy never hurt anybody.